Are you guys getting me up? Oh, yeah. Oh, well, it's so the one. I was concerned.
Call this meeting to order. I pledge allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Moore, here. Mrs. Thompson. Here. Mr. Morris.
Here.
Mr. Bittner.
Here.
Mr. Shaboo.
Here.
Mr. Lunder.
Here.
Mr. Johnson.
Here. Approval of the minutes from the regular meeting of council, July 25th, 2023. Are there any additions or corrections to the minutes?
Motion to approve. Second.
Motion made by Mr. Morris, second by Mr. Bittner for approval. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Moore. Aye. Mrs. Thompson. Aye. Mr. Morris.
Aye.
Mr. Bittner.
Aye.
Mr. Shaboo.
Aye.
Mr. Lunder.
Aye.
Mr. Johnson.
Aye. Correspondence. Clerk, is there any correspondence tonight?
I have no correspondence
Does
tonight.
any member of council have correspondence tonight? Yes.
I have correspondence from Miss Diane Bainrich of 7723 Salida Road. She reached out to myself and many other council members regarding some property that trespassing and destroying of her property from her neighbor, Mr. Nails. We do have a meeting to go out there on Tuesday at 4 p.m. with administration, police chief, and a couple other council members.
Okay. Anyone else have correspondence this evening? Hearing none, we'll move on to administrative and department head reports. Mayor and Safety Director, Mr. Eva, good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Johnson, members of council, the public here this evening. I'm gonna start off with, I gave each of council the handout. And this really is, Jim Farowski, our service foreman, came up with this. It's the City of Mount Island Lake 2024 banner program. And he's looked at this, other cities have this, and he was able to secure an individual that can do these banners. And just for the public, the City of Mount Island Lake banner program is a tribute to recognize and honor our residents and their immediate family members who are currently serving or have served our country in the armed forces, Army, Navy, Air Force, Marine Corps, Coast Guard, and National Guard. What these will be at this start, beginning of 2024, the banners that hang that you see in matter of the service members current, and the cost right now for a new banner is roughly $130, and really the application just asks for the service person, the branch, and then as it's outlined, a photo of the individual. And you know, I think Mr. Bittner, we talked about this a couple years ago, and Jim was able to do some research on this and get this organized for us. So this again, we'd like to start this beginning of 2024. We received an email from Tim Lannon. Tim is our city engineer, and good news is the Southland Storm Sewer Project is moving forward. If all goes as planned, we're in line to get a $350,000 grant for Southland, and the funds would be available July 1st of 2024. This still needs final approval, but it looks like, according to Tim, we can go out and get bids next May and June and get a contract after July 1st. According to the schedule, though, it looks like we could still do Southland sometime before the end of 2024. So this was really good news. To continue down Andrews Road and get our infrastructure approved or improved. The city's charter is reviewed every 10 years. We are looking for volunteers to participate in the Charter Review Commission. If anyone is interested, please send a letter of interest to our council clerk Joyce Sachs, at councilclerk@cityfederal.org. Our fall festival will be held here at City Hall on Saturday, September 9th, from 2 to 8 p.m. We are always looking for volunteers, and please contact us at City Hall if you'd like to volunteer. I talked to Wendy Zealy. Wendy and I have had several conversations. Wendy is from First Energy, and she sent over the following information. She actually summarized a conversation we had yesterday. And as she puts it, the following information pertains to the power reliability improvements that First Energy CEI is reviewing, making to the Mark substation. Note, many residents have reported on momentary electrical interruptions, primarily since the end of July 2023. The breaker recloser counters reported 14 momentary interruptions from July 20th to August 8th. Here's what they've been working on. Multiple circuit patrols were conducted by operations and completed the weeks of July 31st and August 7th. Circuit reconfiguration was completed on August 9th to limit the overhead exposure and aid in troubleshooting. A thermal scan was completed on August 11th with no conditions found. A thermal scan identifies any hotspots on equipment. On 8/15/23, fault indicators were installed throughout the circuit. A fault indicator is a device that detects and indicates the occurrence of an electrical fault on overhead distribution. It provides direction on fault location. Substation circuit pole inspections will be completed by year-end 2023. The last forestry trimming they did was completed in 2021. The next time they'll do that is 2025. As far as what happened last week, the residents on Salida Drive experienced an outage on 8/17/23 due to a tree off the right-of-way that brought down power lines. This tree top broke off and damaged the electrical secondaries. So she was just explaining that with the trimming, they'll do the right-of-way. But in this case, when a tree out of the right-of-way falls and causes a power outage, that would be up to the resident to maintain that. That's all I have. I did send a memo or dropped a memo in everybody's mailbox, stated August 17th. The use of City of Mineral Lake assigned emails. And this has also been reviewed by Mr. Lyons. Please allow this to serve as a reminder that all City of Mineral Lake emails issued to employees and elected officials are to be used only for City of Mineral Lake related purposes. An employee may not use their public email for their own private gain or that of persons or organizations with which they are associated personally. Further, an employee's position or title should not be used in any manner other than for city-related purposes. The personal use of city-issued emails has been a subject of concern in the past, and the solution has been and continues to be that the emails are for city-related uses only. I thank you in advance for your adherence to these guiding principles. The fire department monthly report for July. July, there were 149 calls for service, 52 fire service calls, 97 rescue EMS calls. Of the 97 calls, there were 20 calls for invalid assist, and unfortunately, 3 calls for an overdose requiring Narcan. In the month of July, the department oversaw the annual fireworks show at Manor Harbor Yacht Club. The annual flow testing of our SCBA packs was completed. The annual pump testing of the fire trucks has begun. New business inspections completed for Public Foods Burritos, Nova Pluck, Lakeshore Smokes, and Happy Tales Pet Supply. Anniversaries in July. Battalion Chief Kanitsky, 32 years, Chief Pachasko, 25 years, and Firefighter Campaign, 13 years. We also, a couple of weeks ago, swore in a new part-time firefighter paramedic. His name is Jack Pan. Jack has certifications as a firefighter too, a paramedic. He's also a full-time firefighter with the city of Kirtland. And he also lives in the city of Manor Lake, which is a plus. One last thing, the Manor Public Library, our Lake Branch turns 25. And this Saturday, August 26th, from 1 to 3, they're having a carnival there. Just wanted to mention that. I also am going to drop off a proclamation for them on their 25th anniversary. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Administrative Director, Mr. Nuss, good evening.
Probably all saw the new sign. I think the service guys did a fantastic job on that. I have a work in progress trying to get some landscaping around that pretty soon. And we got training on how to program and get some more things up on there, the date, time, stuff like that, on Friday at 10 a.m. The curtain will be shipped September 19th. We'll have the curtain here hopefully before October. And I also spoke to Wendy Feely recently, and I reached out to Jenny Costanzo with Novak. It turns out we need to switch our traffic and street light accounts to Novak. That'll save us, I believe it was $657 a month starting in October. That's good news. That concludes my report.
Good. Thank you, Law Director, Mr. Lyons, good evening.
Good evening, following up on historical facts of the branch of the Manor Public Library here in Manor Lake. I remember that it's 25 years old, but that land was acquired by the city of Manor Lake 26 years ago, for the specific purpose of having a library. The city acquired it back in that time period, this property in the Lincoln tax. And so the city got to this before the land bank and all those things. And there were tax liens as part of the real estate tax bureau, and then our school board and all of the other tax jurisdictions. And all of them agreed to waive it, the taxes, so that land transferred to the Manor Public Library. Sure enough, they went ahead and built it, and I think that there was a recent addition to it that came about because a person who thought very highly of it left money to the Manor on the Lake branch, and that new addition, I don't think it was entirely funded by that grant, by that gift, state gift, but to a great extent. So I thought that was interesting in terms of, public and private working together to have was a real nice aspect. That's all I have.
Okay, Police Chief, Mr. Forsythe, good evening.
Good evening. 4 things I wanted to talk about. New hires, I've hired 3 personnel. As far as the patrol side, we're back full staff. Once our new hire done his FTO training, Christopher Larson, he has approximately 2 years part-time service for Portland Bay Police, and about the same amount of time for New London and back. So this is his first full-time police job. He's so far he's doing really well. He's got a great attitude. I think he's going to work out really well. I hired a full-time dispatcher, which will bring us, once he's done with training, will bring us up to full staff for communication. Riley Geyer, she's 18, graduated from East North this year. He's communication I've had with her at field this last going on a month is doing very well. I recently hired a part-time communications officer, Seth Moore. I graduated from Riverside. He's 19. His aspiration to be a police officer, so I'll get a couple years out of him before he goes to the academy. He did an internship with the county sheriff's office, and everyone over there, those of you that know Zach Rofus, they said he can act next to Zach Rofus, just a really great individual. And on July 20th, we had the storm of the century from Manor Lake. I wrote a commendation letter for 6 employees, Scott Dodemeyer, Clay Bray, Connor Matson, Kevin Brodzinski, Kristen Story, and Jamie McKee. Residents of Iron Lake experienced the worst storm on record on Thursday, July 20th. Michael burst caused winds exceeding 80 miles per hour, resulting in uprooted trees, snapping building poles, down power lines, and damage to homes and vehicles. Calls flooded into dispatch without cause, causing overwhelming stress for both dispatch and patrol. More workers were brought in to manage the amount of work. Kristen Story performed exceptionally well in dispatch despite the challenges she faced. Here we campaigned from the fire department that helped with dispatching until Dean arrived. Then Dean and Kristen worked together as a team. Scott Dodemeyer and Clay Brady were out in the storm doing their best to help as many people as 2 officers could. Scott and Clay received assistance from the 3rd shift officers, Connor Matson and Kevin Brodzinski. Everyone worked in unison that night, displaying exceptional teamwork. Their behavior and skills represent the agency and show residents that we are confident and professional. I want to acknowledge that your actions align with the values of the Mineral Lake Police Department. You have done an excellent job, and I encourage you to continue your good work. Third, all of you are aware we purchased new police cars every year. Prior to John Geeling leaving, he secured in September of 22, he secured 2023 Ford Explorer to replace 575. I had the pleasure of putting in a request for 2024 Ford Explorer. We get our vehicles through statewide board. It's all it's state bid. The cruisers are completely outfitted with the vehicles. I've been in contact with Steve Rick, he's the territory fleet account manager. He recommends that if we purchase a second vehicle this year, he has another 2023. The reason being, prices are going up, they continue to go up. Just in the last 3 years, we've gone from 45,000 to 54,000. Now they're 63,000. The one we secured that was already in the budget that is growth was 58,250. This one, because we didn't secure it, will be 63. By getting a 23, we'll still save a few $1,000s. And there's a possibility that if we go for a 24, we won't get one at all. Ford and other manufacturers are drastically reducing production for 24. It's all related to the pandemic. They're trying to get caught up. They told a lot of cities, for example, Cleveland Police Department, they generally get 50 cars a year. Ford told them you're only going to get 10. So I'm asking that, and I've talked to the mayor and Terry Ness about where the funds would come from. So I'm asking that if we could get a second one this year. With the understanding I won't ask for one in my budget questions, but have the allowance, you know, they ask some policy.
Yeah, we're looking at, using the ARP funds. We're not sure what's left from the police department remodel that we'll have in month, but we're gonna continue to look at other line items to do that. With the remodel, we're looking at maybe exterior, changes that can wait. You know, get the interior done, then, you know, somewhere down the road, do something with the exterior. I know Chief has talked to them about some electrical changes that are going to save some expense there. And as he said, you know, as he stated, we'd like to get 2 cars because we're not even sure that another one is going to be available. And so we'll continue to look at line items as we go and try to find the funds to cover, you know, the additional car this year.
It'll help if they come in real much lower than on the bids as well. that's what we work on. Probably about that.
The only thing I was gonna do is kind of keep you updated on the process, locker room. It has to go because they sent the electricians out, they sent some other people out to look at everything to see if there were ways to try to bring the cost down. They did come back with a lower cost. It's gonna have to go back out for the bid because of that. It's my understanding, I'm still in the middle of this, but. So it will go back out for bid and. If it's approved, then we can present it to you. The only thing that I ask is if you would consider. Once it's brought to you, not going through the 3 readings, so you just get started and get it done. I'm sure all of you have seen her locker room. If not, I'll tell you about it. It's easy to do. Thank you.
Any questions for the administration or department heads? Yes.
Mayor, on the storm sewer, do we have a list of streets that have already been completed and streets that need to be completed? So I know, we went Pinehurst, now Southland. Do we need any more streets going north that need to be done that are on the list or?
No, from Pinehurst, we've done Miami and then Southland, and then really to do where it needs it the most would be after Southland to do Valley. That seems to be next, and then really everything going north-south is done. It's just going, let's say, the western side of Andrews, going this way, so Dahlia, and then we'll look at, from there. But the reason we had such a high score with Southland is we've already paid for the engineering. A lot of that cost, has already been incurred. And so we scored higher, they do the scoring system, so we're near the top. And, Tim Land is pretty sure we'll get, final approval at the beginning of next year. It's just waiting until, like July to get going.
And how are the streets determined on which ones need to be replaced?
Well, I think when we go through during the storm, it pretty much tells us, we knew Pinehurst was bad, we knew Southland was bad, and we know, Dahlia is, kind of about the same shape. So beyond Dahlia, it's hard to say, because these things, at one time, we thought we could do one a year, and it's just not gonna happen that way. So really, how long, for us to do Southland, with a $350,000 grant and probably a low interest rate, loan, it's still gonna be, at least $1 million. Yeah, and zero interest, right, zero. So, it's just really wait and see. But we've done, Lake, everything's done. And just following the path down this way.
Is Sharon on the west side been looked at all?
I don't think so, no.
I know some people over there have been complaining there's some flooding on the west side of Andrews for Sharon.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sure.
Mr. Lunder.
Police chief works late. Is there a deadline on when you have to order that car?
That's an answer I've been trying to get out of Steve. They don't have them yet. So the one that John Geeling secured last year, this just kind of give you an idea of it, how drawn out this has been. Normally, we usually get our new cruiser around May. One piece secured, we're still waiting on, we're supposed to get it next month. So, what he did tell me is that they've got it in their inventory. They would just have to plan for the day. And they're not gonna wanna wait too much longer. Because they're gonna wanna sell.
Thank you.
As long as he knows I'm working on it.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else?
Mayor, for the, if people are interested in submitting for the charter review committee, is there a deadline for that?
We have the ad, and I believe the ad says, a month, so September 7th. But I know, I'm going back. I was around back in 2004 when we did it, 2014. So now 2024. There's my recollection, there's never been a full board after that ad's expired, so we've had to go out, recruit to get 9 members for the board. So I don't think the deadline is a hard deadline.
Anybody else? Hearing none. We move on to board, committee, and commission reports. Planning and zoning commission.
Planning and zoning met August 7th. At 6 p.m. In attendance was Suzanne Cason, chairperson, Mike Sweeney, Gary Leonard, Brent Moore, myself, Dave Eva, Jim Lunder, Rob Johnson, Paul Morris, some residents. A variance was approved for a driveway at 7648 Permits. The next meeting is September 11th, 2023 at 6 p.m.
Zoning committee.
The zoning committee, it started at 6 p.m. It's not on here, August 10th. And the purpose was to review chapter 693, the community reinvestment. And attendance with myself, Desiree Thompson, Jim Lunder, Paul Morris, Robert Johnson, Michelle Moore, Kevin Bittner, and Dave Eva. The committee approved to send to council to repeal chapter 893 CRA as of June 30th, 24, and make an amendment to repeal that applications and repeal that application must be submitted and approved by June 30th, 24. Meeting adjourned 6:31.
Okay. Ordinance committee.
Ordinance committee met yesterday, time started with 7 o'clock, then we postponed the meeting until after PCA had completed, so we resumed at 7:34. Purpose of the meeting was to talk about short-term rentals. After brief discussion, we're kind of gonna wait and see Richmond Heights, which put a ban on short-term rentals on August 11th. Kind of see how that works out legally. At this time, no further action is gonna be taken by the committee. And the tenants, myself, Mr. Morris, Mr. Shaboo, Mr. Lunder, Jonathan, Ms. Moore, Mr. Eva, and some members of the public. We adjourned at 7.
Thank you. Court of Zoning Appeals.
BZA met on August the 21st, meeting started at 7 p.m. For a variance for a garage at 5845 Lake Road. In attendance with Ray Geeling, myself, Mike Sweeney, Randy Montgomery, Mayor Eva, Rob Johnson, Michelle Moore, Paul Morris, and Jason Morris, the property owner. The variance was for a garage with the height limit of 20 feet. He is going to go for a 22-foot variance. 10% granted, that was 10% granted for the variance, and it was granted. And it ended at 7:15.
Thank you. Any other board committees or commissions that met? Hearing none, we'll move on to open to the public to speak. If you'd like to speak, please come to the lectern, state your name and address for the record.
President, members of council, my name is Andy Rose. I reside at 8027 Linden Street. At our lake. I'm here to briefly offer some comments on ordinance 2023 TAC Tax 17. That is an ordinance that is before you on third reading to repeal the CRA. As somebody who is familiar with CRAs, it is a very important economic development tool. It is my understanding that so far in the 7 years that it's been in effect since 2016, I believe there have been 10 to 15 properties that have taken advantage of the CRA. They've all been residential. But I would encourage council to leave that in place and amend it based upon the new rules that were put into effect on January 4th. Well, they were signed by the governor in January. I believe they went into effect in early April. It makes the CRA much more attractive from an economic development standpoint. You can certainly carve out the residential piece. Personally, I think people fix up their homes whether or not they're getting a CRA. And I would venture to guess that the majority of our residents have made significant improvements to their homes without applying for a CRA. But I would certainly leave it in place for the commercial aspect, and I would use that as a tool to get more aggressive on economic development. But to completely eliminate it, I think quite personally is bad governance and it's foolish. There are opportunities out there. If you look at the office buildings on Munson Road, I would certainly be contacting that owner and having a long discussion about the CRA. Try to increase the payroll, get professional people back in there, but that's gonna require those to be stepped back up and remodeled into better spaces. But I certainly think that they can be reutilized. I understand that there's a possible tenant for the Burger King, or the old Burger King. Should that not go through, or that individual owner comes in, there's an opportunity for some CRA incentives there. And keep in mind that with a CRA on a commercial industrial, payroll is tied to that. They have to meet certain benchmarks, and those have to be reviewed by the Tax Incentive Review Council, should one of those come up. The other attractive thing is you no longer have to go to the state for approval if you amend it after April, and we're certainly past April 4th. So you can amend it, then you no longer need to go down to the state, to the Department of Development and ask permission and mother may I. You can just pass it and incorporate it into your ordinances. The other thing that's nice is they've amended the revenue sharing with the schools. And they've increased the threshold so that more than likely for any commercial activity that comes into Mentor and the Lake, you would not have to be subjected to any revenue sharing with the schools. Getting a glazed look, I apologize, Mr. President.
Keep going.
Okay. One of the other things that's nice is local school districts. If your abatement or your incentive is 75% or less, you don't go to that 75 to 100 category. The school district can no longer object if you modified it to that new legislation. So it makes it a very attractive. Economic development tool. So I would encourage you not to repeal section 893. I would encourage that you possibly work with the administration and the law director and craft an amendment to 893 to incorporate the new rules that are in effect, and you can carve out the portion dealing with residential. I suspect that some members of council, not all, feel like you're leaving some money on the table because you allowed the CRA to help residential folks, and that's income that could come into the coffers, which could help buy a new police cruiser. But in the grand scheme of things, I don't know what the exact amount is. I would imagine it's, we're talking what, 10 10 to 15 houses, so you're probably talking no more than, well, call it $1,000 a house on a rebuild, so you're probably less than 15,000. So I don't believe that you're leaving a lot of money on the table, and those are already set in stone, but if you go from here forward and carve out the residential and go with the commercial, I think that would be a very good way to go. So when that does come up for a vote, I look forward to a robust discussion amongst yourselves to deliberate this issue. And I'm curious to hear your thoughts on the value of CRA, especially from a commercial standpoint. And then I will also be curious, and I know you don't have to, but if you're willing, I would request through the president that whether you vote yes or no, you state your reason why. So I'm just very curious. I don't know any more important economic development tool, especially for a smaller community such as this, to help bring in additional tax dollars. While you do give an incentive to reduce those, you still pick up additional dollars and you pick up the 2% payroll tax, which is extremely important to the city. I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else? Hearing none, we will move on to legislation before council. Ordinance number 2023-0-07 is still assigned to the committee of the whole, so we will skip over that for now. Ordinance number 2023-0-17, if you please read it by its title.
Ordinance number 2023-0-17, third reading, assigned to zoning committee. An ordinance repealing chapter 893, community reinvestment area.
Okay, and the zoning committee has referred this back, correct, as amended. We have a copy of the amended version. Correct. Okay, discussion.
I'll open the floor. Mayor Terry, do we have any pending applications for this right now? Nobody's applied for it recently. Okay.
We had a phone call about it, but yeah, no application.
No applications, okay. I disagree with extending this until June 30th of 2024. If we're saying that we are getting rid of this because of the need for tax money, we do have 3 renewals that are gonna be on the ballot in November. We're also asking for people to consider an additional millage to do the revetment work at the park. So we're asking the residents to give us more tax dollars. But yet we're gonna extend this until June 30th of 2024 and give people the option to continue to apply for a tax incentive. I'm against extending it till June. If we're gonna pass this and get rid of it, then we need to pass it and get rid of it. If we're gonna leave it open till June 30th of 2024, then we might as well just leave it on the books and see what we wanna do. Thinking about what Mr. Rose stated, businesses, it sounds like we might wanna look into what the governor changed with the CRAs at the state level this year. Thinking about, one of the things we always talk about is what can we do to bring businesses into this city? Well, if we can incentivize the business to come here, we might lose something on the property tax end, but if we're bringing in money from sales tax, from employment, people spending more money in our city instead of going across the street to Menor or to Willoughby or to Painesville or wherever it is, maybe we need to take a close look at what can we do to get those businesses in. Yes, we might lose a little bit on, like I said, the property tax end, but if we're bringing it in through employment, sales tax and other revenue streams, are we really gonna be losing that much? So I think it's maybe something to stop and think about.
Okay, others? Mr. Leonard.
As I mentioned at the last council meeting, I was against repealing it. I was coming up with a compromise of 5 years, 50%. And I mentioned that at the committee meeting too, and I was turned down with the committee meeting. And I'm for voting no on it just because I don't want to get rid of it.
Okay. Mr. Bitter.
I been pretty true this whole time. I don't feel that, I will also be voting no to repealing it. I think that offering incentives to businesses and or residents is a good thing. It makes people, like I said, I've had 2 people on this list that have told me personally they've done this, their improvements due to the abatement they would receive. After reading it carefully yesterday, you know, on the business side, it states up to. It doesn't say you have to give 100% to everyone. It says up to the urge. It doesn't state you have to give it every time. Those are adjustable. I think we can work on that.
And to Mr. Rose's point too, you know, we're giving these tax abatements now. But the tax increase, we haven't seen those tax increase hit back to our community yet. So after these abatements are up, their tax base on that particular property will increase when it's coming back to us. And as Mr. Rose also stated, there have been a lot of people in the community who have made improvements to their house, myself being one. And I did not apply for this, which I could have and I would have qualified, but you know, we chose not to. So I think on this one right now, I'm going to vote no as well, just until we can review these new rules. And like Mr. Bittner said, you know, they were up to, they weren't set at that percentages for the years and for the 100%.
So, yes,
I'm wondering how much we promoted this, or could we have done a better job? I also think Mr. Rose's, state new rules needs to be looked at. I'm wondering if we should send this back to committee to relook at this.
that's what I was about to say. So I think I will refer this back to the zoning committee once again. Back to you. To review the new rules, now that we're aware that there were new rules applied, and whether we want to continue with the residential portion or not versus the business portion. So is that fair to everyone?
Yes.
Okay, we'll refer that back to the zoning committee. Congratulations, you got it back. Old business, is there any old business tonight? Any new business? I will bring up new business. I am going to be introducing some amendments to our council rules to address one of the things that we got a memo from the mayor on regarding use of city email, certain ethical things that I believe should be documented in our council rules so that everyone who is on council currently and in the future are aware of them and agree to them, and that we don't have any issues in the future. So I will be bringing that forward hopefully for the next meeting for everybody to review and then discuss. Any other new business tonight?
I do have something.
Yes.
This was brought up maybe a couple of weeks ago, the inconsistencies with the cases that are heard by the Board of Zoning Appeals and the Planning and Zoning Commission. There seems to be some disconnect in some of the ordinances. And I think Mr. Johnson, you mentioned this is similar to maybe the zoning issues that we had back then. And I don't off the top of my head remember the exact numbers of the ordinances, but it seems that we kind of figured it out, but not sure if maybe a change in legislation could make it a little clearer when we get these cases in. So there's no confusion about this goes to planning and zoning, this goes to BZA, so on and so forth.
Okay, so we will refer to the ordinance committee. Review fences on corner lots, that's currently sent to planning and zoning, whether that should go to BZA or planning and zoning. As well as driveways. I believe those are the only two that we've determined go to planning and zoning rather than BZA.
And the thing is, you know, when we talk about variances, I guess I look at it as any variance would be an appeal. You know, it's out of this, and I think, you know, the fence situation and the driveway. It could be other things, but you guys could look at it.
I could say, being new, I thought it went to planning and zoning first, and then the appeal was to BPA, if planning and zoning didn't approve. Also, the fee schedule is different, in the ordinance as well for planning and zoning. Once it's $100, once it's $200. I'm not sure if, I know the PCA there has to be, advertising. So I think it's either doesn't, so I think that's why there's a $200 fee, so. Well,
We covered that in the rental. We did go over that. It is because of the advertisement. The lines. We discussed that.
Okay, any other new business? Hearing none, we'll move on to open to the public to speak. Yeah, this is your opportunity to come to the lectern, state your name and address for the record. Hearing none, we'll move on to announcements and settings of meetings. Here's some zoning and ordinance meetings, I know.
Park and Rec is meeting on Thursday at 6 p.m. The 24th.
Parks and Rec, Thursday, 24th at 6 p.m.
Zoning. What's a good night for you, Desiree?
Thursdays and Fridays are better nights for me.
How about the 31st?
I'm open. I'm good.
October 31, what time?
October 31.
August.
Wow, that's a long way away.
Sorry, excuse me.
August 31st at what time?
What time, Desiree?
Anytime after 5.
Oh, 6,
That's good.
6. Okay.
Okay,
Ordinance. 29. 7.
August 29 at 7 p.m.
okay, so that's ordinance, the 29th at 7 p.m. That was zoning, the 31st at 6 p.m. Parks and Rec, the 24th at 6 p.m.
I need to,
You go right ahead.
Service, right?
let's go utility meeting first. Myself and you and, Mr. Bitter. Let's go for you guys. We're open.
Do that.
So do you want to do that for zoning meeting?
August 31.
Yeah.
That's 7 p.m.
Yeah.
And that's service,
No, that's utility.
Utilities. The 31st, 7 p.m. Utility Committee.
And, the service meeting. It's, myself, Desiree and Paul.
7:30 that night. So you're
I just have to work the next day.
That's, to discuss the, cutting of the grass.
Fees.
Okay.
Fees, right?
Yeah, fees.
What day?
You want to do it after the utility meeting? I don't know.
Yes.
Let's just rack them and stack it here.
You're enjoying that, aren't you, Ron?
Pretty much, get them all done in one night.
That's after the 7.
We'll make that 7:30.
7:30.
The utility is, what's the topic?
Oh, that's for, the contract coming up with Republic for,
Oh, Garden.
yeah, May of, next year. And, we're gonna start working on that, going over the contract.
Okay. Thank you.
Planning and zoning
Planning and zoning.
is the September. I think it's the 11. That's
6 p.m. So planning and zoning, September 11th, 6 p.m.
And I'm gonna add one more.
Okay,
Community development.
okay,
Not on the 31st.
No, it won't be on the 31st. On the 14th of September,
14th of September,
7 P.M.
7 P.M., community development.
I'm sorry, 7 P.M.
Yes. Is that good?
That's okay.
Good for you? Or,
Feel like I should, do a committee of the whole meeting at some point then.
yeah, you just gotta get that in there.
Sorry. Any other meetings?
31st.
There's enough.
Guys, you're good on meetings now?
Kevin suggesting the 31st for your community. as a whole.
Yeah, we'll do that at 10. All right. And is there a motion for adjournment?
Motion made.
Seconded.
Motion made by Mrs. Thompson, seconded by Mr. Morris. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Moore,
Aye.
Mrs. Thompson.
Aye.
Mr. Morris,
Aye.
Mr. Bittner,
Aye.
Mr. Shaboo,
Aye.
Mr. Lunder,
Aye.
Mr. Johnson.
Aye. This meeting is adjourned.